A very important part of this project is telling the story. And really fortunately, in this instance, there is sort of a very specific new entity that has come to Los Angeles that does this in the América Tropical Interpretive Center. And Thomas Hartman is going to talk about his work in developing the proposals for this and bringing it to fruition. Thomas Hartman is the president of IQ Magic. He's widely recognized as an innovative leader in museum development, exhibition design, and planning for cultural tourism. His professional practice has produced cultural experiences for art, for history, science museums, libraries, archives, zoos, interpretive centres, historic districts, and entertainment venues. And the core aim of IQ Magic's work is threefold: to produce compelling storytelling, to create discovery-orientated learning environments, and develop experiences with a refined design aesthetic. And Tom is responsible for the exhibit design at Attic, and please join me in welcoming Tom Hartman.
Okay, thanks. And is this, which one's the forward button? That one? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Well, we got the fun part. I mean, I can't believe all the work that's been done on this over the years. I have to also say this is our longest running project. I think we started this in 1994. I like to say I started this before I had gray hair. So at any rate, it's just been a great project. The dramatic story of this mural, the man who created it, and the impassioned times in which it was painted and painted over is full of radical politics, social discord, and artistic grandeur. It pointed the artist in a new direction. It revealed the cracks in the sunny face of Los Angeles and foreshadowed an explosion in public art that continues to echo across the globe. The artwork is now a ghost of itself, but when it was painted, it could not be ignored. Monumental in scale, revolutionary in technique, and explicit in its politics, it was a sensation. And within a short period of time, it was whitewashed. The Interpretive Center, this is an interpretive center. It's not a gallery, it's not a museum, it's not a retrospective, and it's not an art history survey of Siqueiros' work. Our mission was to reveal why did it matter then? Why does it matter now? And the answers are a story that is universal, timeless to the human condition. It's an incredible story. The aesthetics that we use to develop the mural derive from América Tropical and from the imagery of Siqueiros and his ideas. In 1932 in Los Angeles, it's really a stage for controversy, and we named this section a stage for controversy because it had the Olympics, it had the Depression, there was repatriation, there was Olvera Street with its Spanish fantasy past. There were all of these conflicting elements, and the exhibits set the stage in layers for this content. And we do this with objects, images on glass, on reader rails. We have the posters, and we also have interactive media that tells that story. And the interactive media, the attract loops, the attract screens are really derived from ideas from Siqueiros and his use of space and his use of three-dimensionality and his desire to create kind of a compelling experience in the way that you would view murals. And overall, we have about 2 hours worth of content with 10 films that we produced, a number of interactives. And we've done this by developing a series of themes. There are 8 major themes that you move through within the exhibition. These themes and the way that we develop the theme panels create a kind of a hierarchy with reader rails and other elements. And we ask provoking questions in order to kind of strike a dialogue and try to create an educational tone in the exhibit. So the interpretive concept was to present Siqueiros in his own words. We didn't really want to come back in and do a new story about him. We wanted the story to be him. We wanted the artist to be present and to be talking about what he was doing and why it mattered. We do this through the voice of Edward James Almost, who is the narrator of Siqueiros. Do we have a volume control? don't know if you can hear that. What? No, there is a volume. I'd like a little bit more volume, but we'll come back to that. That's fine. So the important part of this is that we use a number of historians, other voices, but a lot of it from critics of the time to tell this story. The next section of the exhibition is this opening night section. We really needed to kind of set the scene. One of the tenets of doing this also was to do this bilingually, so all of the films are translated into Spanish, are bilingual. We have an interactive handheld device that allows you to read all of the script and the narrative that's in the exhibition in Spanish, and we hope to be doing a Spanish language tour at the same time. So one of the dramatic elements that we wanted was to look at the opening night and to try to imagine, this is an artist's view of who might have been at this opening night, because we know about 60 to 70 people who were there. This mural was painted by a couple of artists we'll come back to. The station has several films that are on this station, interactive timelines, and other elements that outline this story and really set the stage for the viewer. So these films all run about 4 minutes apiece because we're trying to pace people through the exhibition. Again, we have timelines. So while Siqueiros is here over a 7-month period of time, he paints the 3 murals. He has a number of gallery exhibitions. There's a lot of critical assessment and review of his work. He meets a lot of film directors. He's really active in the community. He gets married. He also finally runs out of his visa time and does get deported and leaves at the end of 7 months. So Luis Garza actually assisted us in doing the timeline aspects of this, which is great. Ken Vesta has been the driving force on our team to do a lot of this interpretation and kind of think about this. While we're doing this research, of course, the key players, we want to place the viewer on the rooftop with the key players. So we have the mayor of Los Angeles, Christine Sterling, F.K. Ferenz, Siqueiros is there, Angelica Arenal is there. Dolores Del Rio, you're seeing a few of the block of painters who are here. In the right-hand corner up here, we also have Neutra, we have Spalding, architects, we have Schindler as an architect. So again, we have about 40 people illustrated on the mural, and this is to kind of permit ongoing programming. These are the artists that work in the studio. Barbara Carrasco and John Valadez put together a team of people. They painted this in the studio over a period of about 3 months, and it was a lot of kind of interactive dialogue and content. Another aspect that we wanted to do was to put the viewer, to give the viewer an experiential kind of quality also with the exhibit. So we've created this scaffolding that has a lot of the tools and the equipment that Leslie was talking about in the technical paper that Siqueiros wrote at the time. So we've collected air guns, airbrushes. We have compressors, believe it or not, from 1917 in here. We have another compressor that's 1934 or so. A Lumiere projector, a French projector that's an early opaque projector that we believe he used to project these images and then put them on the paper and then transfer them later to the mural. But this gives a quality of moving through a structure and I think providing a kind of human scale and a human moment to the tools and what it was going to take. In doing the exhibit design, one of the criteria for the exhibit design was to not touch the historic fabric of the building. That we had to, you can see that there's a frieze that runs around the top. Brooke Scarpa developed these walls to kind of glaze over the existing walls that are movable. We had the media housings. You can see the aluminum media housings hold all of the equipment. We created raceways and other elements using kind of industrial tools and industrial techniques, something similar to maybe what Siqueiros himself might have done. The next part of the story is, because this is an archaeological site, the importance of the story is América Tropical to us. Like I said, it's not a museum, so everything that we're doing here is reflecting back on América Tropical and looking at América Tropical's influence on the rest of his work. The rest of his work in later years goes into this idea of the dynamic spectator, which originates with América Tropical, where the viewer is, in a way, the projector, and as the viewer is moving across the space, it activates the painting surfaces. So here we start to explore what these elements are, and we start to try to discuss some of the complex ideas that he comes up with, which is the use of photography for foreshortening, for predicting spaces, for looking at multiple perspectives. He develops this whole idea of monumental scale. Even if he paints a really small painting, it still feels like a mural that's enormous, to engross the viewer and pull them into the picture plane. He also develops this idea of polyangularity, which is taking these multiple perspectives and overlaying them so that as the viewer is moving, there are multiple vantage points from which you get new information, and it makes these surfaces active. So this area was really a sketch on the wall to kind of replicate or take some of the trace elements from San Miguel Allende and put those ideas into effect. And there's an interactive game here that we have on computers that you use to kind of discover these elements. The open quality of the space here that you're seeing is a result of us also wanting to have a lecture hall and make this a community center. This really is a community center for artists, the Chicano artists, mural painters. We envision you can see the overhead projector in the ceiling. There's a screen that comes down. There'll be nighttime programs. There's going to be workshops. There are going to be a lot of extra events that dimensionalize this story. When you look at the mural itself, the mural and the experience of América Tropical here is told through some interactive stations in which the viewer can start to move through the iconography of the mural. It gets electrified behind. You won't see that today. We still have some parts coming from China actually to make this work, but we had it working and we now have to rework it. But there are, behind this black and white mural image, the image is ray traced and images fill in, and you really start to understand how the mural was constructed and what the ideas are about through Siqueiros' voice. So you're seeing some of the screens that come up. While these screens come up, you hear almost talking about that in the quotes of Siqueiros. And then finally, the mural, we wanted to print the mural as large as we could, so this is an 8-foot by 34-foot image. To do an image of that size, we needed a high-resolution photograph, which actually didn't exist. You know, the photograph that Jesus mentioned earlier today, this John Weiskell photograph, and the photographs that we found in other locations had either been copied so many times, the originals may have been lost, but we had really no high-resolution photograph. We went on a search for about 4 months in a lot of different collections and places, and we found a number of images that we then composited to create probably the first picture you see of América Tropical. And this is dated October 10th, 1932. The right-hand side of the photograph comes from a PR photograph that we discovered at USC, and we went down and scanned that high resolution. However, half of it is literally cut in half. We took other parts of photographs, spliced them in through Photoshop, and then developed this image so that we could paint or print this mural. But if you look in books, you don't see this upper right-hand corner printed. Almost none of these photos are intact. So to the right of that last experience, we also have a couple of films then about the conservation of América Tropical and the community partnerships it took in order to get this put together. And then we have the artist section, and the artist section is looking at the artists. We have composers, artists, writers, historians. This is Harry Gamboa Jr., all talking about the mural and the influence of Siqueiros, their ideas, how it works, what it means today, what could it mean tomorrow, why was it important in 32, what do we have to look at now? This is Carol Wells talking about art, you know, the movement of art and the art of politics. So we get to look at this from a lot of points of view. And that was the whole issue, to create an interpretive center that would have multiple points of view, create an open-ended dialogue, and allow people to go up to the mural and the viewing platform and see it, and to kind of come out with their own thoughts about why it matters, what's interesting, and what we do next. The long-term aspects, and these are, well, most of the people that worked on the mural or that we interviewed over this last, not since 1994, but over the last few years. But I think that the key idea for us is to create an interpretive center, and we really are looking forward to the future programming. We've been talking with Chris Espinoza and the Getty and others about how do we get a collection of people together to talk about curriculum for both universities, high schools, that addresses public policy, politics, art, history, cultural history, economics, Chicano studies. I mean, this is really an open-ended story, and it so ties to the Chinese American Museum, the Italian Hall, and this hot, melting pot of people in Los Angeles to really look at, global issues of change and the impact on cultures as cultures change. Thank you.